Yo, Paris Orphans and Retrogrades. Today we have a special episode for you, a special guest, Mr. Chris Lewis. You know him as Baritus Art. I'm wearing one of his shirts right now. I wear it frequently on the show. People know it's one of my repeat t-shirts, graphic tees that I wear. We have some of his art up in our guest room. We're honored to have him. We're going to be talking about all things art. I sound like Roy Anderson from The Office, the best art of all the art. I think, Chris, you have some of the best modern art of all the modern art. Welcome to Rules for Retrogrades.
Yeah, thank you. That's to be put into, unfortunately, the category of modern art. It's like a weird thing. I feel like a bit out of place, but I mean, it is what it is. But that's why I kind of do this stuff, because I feel like it needs to be taken back to a certain degree.
Yeah, no, I know. I talked to, I think it was my older brother, who is, Catholic, but not necessarily a trad. And he just asked me randomly a couple months ago, "Hey, have you ever heard of this Baritus guy? He's not in this trad world." So I was like, yeah, I know the guy. We communicate offline some, and yet this is the first time we're talking. So your art is surprisingly ubiquitous. I want to talk to you today about. We were talking before a camera rolled about the surprising ubiquity of your own craft. Sometimes you kind of wake up and find yourself published, and you're talking about the strangeness of that. I want to talk to you about humor and art, the way that guys like us in, I guess now our mid 40s both of us grew up in Southern California, and humor's kind of also ubiquitous to everything we do. There's a breaking papal story out of the Vatican. I want to get your take on that. I want to get your take on modern art in general. I have a guess what you'll say, but Pope Leo names this pro-LGBT artist to lead the Vatican's Academy for Fine Arts. Isn't that special? Christiana Perella has organized sexually explicit Homo sapien art displays in recent years. I'll read that article, and I'll just let non-gay artists such as yourself react to the funny lines in LifeSite News. But we'll be talking about all things art today. But first up, Chris, great to have you here. And we were talking before camera rolled that I do have some of your art up in my guest room. I guess a mutual friend of ours, Jordan, told you it's just like 4 pieces of yours up there, and you were saying, gosh, that's strange. Isn't it strange to find your work in someone else's house?
No, it's crazy because I did this as a hobby. Like, I wasn't even really intending to start a business, and then people told me that they loved it and they would want to support it. So I was like, okay. I had been in the world making products and stuff, like in the secular world, forever. So I thought, why not take the art that I'm doing and put it on some things in the Catholic world, because I was so tired of the ugliness and all that stuff that I was seeing out in the world. It was kind of a way to take up some space and reclaim that territory. And it's still mind-boggling though when I just pulled up to a parish not too long ago, the other day or so, and I saw a guy get out of his car. I didn't know the guy at all, and he was wearing one of my shirts. I just see that thing sometimes, and I'm like, it just kind of blows my mind, because it was something. I remember being a kid. My dad was a Marine, right? So I remember him asking me, like, what are you going to do with yourself? Like, what are you going to do for a living? And I'm like, well, I want to be an artist. And in his mind, he's probably thinking of what you're reading here on the paper from the Vatican. He's like, what are you going to do with art? I mean, that's not.
Why do you like dudes? Why do you like
that's right.
Dudes? Like a Marine is like, what? What are you telling me?
I legit think he had like a little bit of concern. Like, I need to get my son back in order. Right. So he's like, why don't you join the Marines? And I'm like, no, I'm like, Dad, I want to do cool art, right? I'm not going to do that stuff. But so anyway, all that to say, like, yeah, for an artist, it's kind of like one of those things. Like, what are you going to do? You're going to do art for a living? I remember making fun of that back when the Democrats were trying to push something so that you can like live out your dreams and fulfill your artistic desires. They were trying to fund that sort of thing for just like dropout people that wanted to do modern art the way we were talking about before the show. And it's like, I don't even call that art, but whatever, so anyway, I'm going off on a tangent, but yeah, it's mind blowing to see that people actually appreciate it. And I think that they have appreciated the fact that when I started doing art, I did art that was like stuff that somebody raised by a Marine who was raised on John Wayne movies and Robin Hood and war movies and stuff. Like, this is the type of stuff that I liked growing up. This is the type of stuff that I read in Catholicism. What you're showing here on the screen, that's St. Ignatius of Loyola being or not Loyola, Saint Ignatius of Antioch being torn apart by lions. Like, that's the reality of Catholicism. Catholicism is the most gritty thing out there. And so why not depict it that way?
It's incredible. That's what I love about your stuff, is that, and that's what I love about Catholic art in general, is that it's just like the brute facts of nature, like that we will die, the memento mori, like the fact that we have saints that are being devoured by lions. I mean, the very doors of the Vatican have what's called the Exercise of the Martyrs, where it shows like people on these ginormous doors, all martyrs dying in the most horrific ways. I mean, this is beautiful. It's absolutely beautiful. It's because it's meaningful.
Yeah, and I think it's a nice mixture of why you need like right brain, left brain. You need artists coming from Marines, right? Like, I want to do a picture of this dude being torn apart, not this gay modern art stuff. Like, you leave it to the son of a Marine to be like, I want to do St. Ignatius of Antioch being torn apart. I remember my dad, I think it was a terrible movie. We were watching a movie with Tom Hanks's son called Orange County, and he wants to be a novelist. And I wanted to be a novelist when I was younger. I ended up writing books, but I've written 5 books, but I never finished the one novel I've ever tried. I'm stuck in the middle of it. I've been stuck for 10 years. Yeah. And my dad just said, kind of like your Marine dad, he's like, oh no, is my son into Father James Martin? He wants to do art. My dad was like, why would anyone want to write a novel? And I was like, man, that made me feel so terrible. But anyway, that wasn't the point of it. It was just, you get if you have a manly dad, I have a science dad, you have a Marine dad, that has you being into the fine arts, novels, or whatever, graphic arts, visual arts, you get a nice grounding, and that really comes through in Baritus art, and I think it's commendable.
Yeah, thank you. I mean, well, thanks be to God. Like, the one thing that was missing though in the upbringing was I wasn't Catholic, so that was something I had to come across later, and it was kind of when I came across Catholicism that I thought this was the culmination of everything that I loved in reality, right? So we were very nominal Protestants. I knew what I liked when I was growing up was like the battle scenes, Joshua in the Old Testament, David and Goliath. I could have told you all the stuff about them. I couldn't have told you anything about Jesus, except he wanted you to be nice and you're already going to go to heaven because you're saved. That's what I knew of Jesus. But I could tell you all the stuff from the Old Testament. And so it was actually discovering Catholicism to see that not only was Jesus just as hardcore, but like he actually doubles down on the Old Testament. And that's totally skewed in today's world. So, and of course that was skewed in my upbringing. So unfortunately, Protestantism led me into atheism, where I thought Christianity was just ridiculous, right? And I thought it was soft, and I thought it just doesn't reflect reality. And so I went into all the dark stuff in the culture, the music scene. We're both MTV generation kids. Like, we grew up in the 80s and 90s. Like, that's what I was raised by.
Yeah.
And
headbangers ball, bro.
Yeah, exactly. Like that kind of
word.
What's that?
I said word.
And you just find out, like, you pull that thread long enough, and you just find out it's empty, and it doesn't lead to anything. And then I discovered Catholicism at 19 or 20, and I'm like, this is actually the thing I was kind of searching for. Like, it has the memento mori stuff, but it's put into its proper context. It's oriented in the right way. And and it's true, right? So, like, we all would know we're going to die, but the point isn't to glorify the death. The point is to, get our house in order and put ourselves on the narrow path to fix ourselves. And I needed that fixing, right? And so all of that comes through. Those are the types of themes I try to depict in the art primarily. Right. So it does take a darker tone. At least that's kind of what comes to me naturally. But the focus is always to point you back and reorient you back to the light.
Death is, like you say, not the point, but it's a little bit badass. It's like a little bit metal. And that's what's cool about Catholicism is it does have that metal element. Memento mori, you're not glorifying death. It doesn't have the last word, as Sean Penn says in Thin Red Line. Christ has the last word.
Yeah, where's your sting now? Right.
Where's your sting now? Yeah, exactly. So That's what we're all looking for, those of us who have a little bit of an edge. And that's also why, I don't know if you find this, Chris, in the Catholic world, people all like your stuff. Your stuff is really popular and it's dope, and I'm glad. But I get a lot of, like, I used to get a lot of misfit reactions to even my skull behind me. I'm like, you guys have never heard of Memento Mori. So a lot of guys like us that fell away, we grew up in the 90s. We fell away because it seemed so tame, you're from Christianity in general.
Yeah.
And then we came back to it realizing it's really cutting edge, and that is more cutting edge than the stuff in the world that we thought was really, really killer, really on the brink. And then there are people that, I don't know, maybe just never had that, temperamentally didn't have that pressing need. And that's great. They were cradle Catholics all along, and they never left. But they'll ask stuff like, well, why do you have, the skull behind you? And I'm like, well, remember Memento Mori. And what you'll see them consciously have to do with more cutting edge art or images or iconography is they'll have to kind of put it in one of their safe categories. They'll be, oh, Memento Mori, yes. St. Augustine, they'll kind of close their eyes and they're kind of checking the box. Okay, St. Augustine did write with the skull on his desk. He just said skull. He said Memento Mori. Okay, so I guess he's okay. So that element of kind of metal of Chris Lewis or Tim Gordon, that's okay. And you see them kind of check the box. And I mean, maybe it's just sort of, there are boring people everywhere. Catholicism has some boring people too, but I don't know if you experience that, because I experienced that a lot in the Catholic world.
Oh, all the time. And actually, I commend you for that logo. Actually, I actually didn't understand it until I heard you explain it on one of your shows, and I thought, oh, that's awesome. Like, if anybody doesn't know, that came from those catacombs, right, or the monastery with the skulls.
Yeah, the Capuchin. I mean, yeah,
and actually, if that was your concept, like, that is storytelling done well. You don't give all the information; you give just enough to ask the questions, and then that mystery there is what our faith is all about. So all I try to do with my art is provide a little bit of mystery. Why do I have a skull on a lot of my works? I have it on my St. Peter. I don't think I have it up here, but I have it on my St. Peter. I have him holding a cross upside down. Well, isn't that satanic? No, actually, warping death, warping the upside down cross, those were tricks of the devil. Christianity had those things first. And when you look at it in the proper context and you look at it for what it symbolizes and what it actually means, it's way more profound and way more attractive as something that really, I think, resonates with everybody. Like, we can deny all day long that we're going to die, and we live in this culture now where we just consume, and we don't take a break for half a second to even consider where we are in life. It's just, we drink through a fire hose with social media and stuff like that. Well, what the Memento Mori devotions and things like that are supposed to do is actually stop you in your tracks for a minute and have you ask a question. So, like, we just need to slow down. These are things to contemplate. So yeah, I run across people all the time that don't get it. For me, that's an occasion to introduce them to an ancient tradition, because a lot of Catholics don't know their traditions as well. I mean, this goes hand in hand with the failure of art post-Vatican II. We've lost art. We've lost our traditions. We've pretty much lost everything except the pew we sit in. And it's like, those are all things, like, we're in an opportune time right now where we have the ability to kind of restore that stuff to Catholicism. And so, like, I looked around a number of years ago when I really got tired of the woke secular world that I was working in, and I started doing Catholic art, as sort of just catharsis, because I hadn't been drawing for years. And I thought, this is the way to do it. For me, it came naturally. I looked around, I was like, well, nobody's doing this. Like, why is nobody doing this? Like, I'm a convert, so I read all the stories of the ancient martyrs. I'm like, this is where the story begins. And I think the weirdness sometimes of and like the grittiness of the things that happened in those days, like, it's really kind of a wake-up call that, like, that reality still exists. We just have this thin veneer that it doesn't, but, like, it's still there. And this art is a way to remind us of that, and also just to remind us that there is something beyond that, but that's what we need to be focused on.
What do you say to somebody, kind of step into the mind of your dad for a second, who was a Marine? What do you say to someone when they ask, how difficult is it to quit doing your day job and to do this full time? First off, do you do this full time now? And how difficult is it to do?
Yeah, I started my company in 2018, or maybe 2017. And all the stuff of 2020 happened, and my company just like went schizophrenic. And it was a wake up call. I just entered, I just started, I was in my 40s. I'm like, can I do this forever? I mean, I had been a graphic designer in the athletic apparel industry for a number of years. And then I was in another corporation doing like retail design and things like that. And I was like, I can't do this. And I was actually doing art for catharsis because I had a rare cancer, and it kind of like knocked me off my horse for a long time. And that kind of reoriented me again towards memento mori, like considering, like, why am I here? Why did God give me these gifts? What am I supposed to do with them? And so really, when it got to the point that I started my company, it kind of just exploded. And I was working essentially 2 full-time jobs. And I just thought, this is like, I'm going to drop dead from this. This is not tenable. And I was looking at the craziness of the world. And I was like, none of these people hold my values. None of these people are virtuous in the things that they're doing in that company. And I thought, at that point, it was a conviction. It's like, I need to do this. Like, it's going to be a risk. I've got 6 kids. Well, now I have 6 kids. At the time, I didn't have 6 kids. And yeah, it was a risk. I lost my month of vacation. I lost my really good pay. I lost my seniority. I lost all of that stuff. But I told my wife, I'm like, I think I'm going to do this. And she looked at me and was like, we can do it. Let's do it. And so me and her did it together. And now my young adult daughter essentially works for me here in the house. And it's a family business. My family goes with me everywhere that I do live events, if I have to do those, or at least the ones that work for me do. And so, yeah, was it hard? Yeah, but I wouldn't. And it's kind of hard in the environment we're in now because the internet is like the Wild West. There's a lot of just like thieves and opportunists. And then now you got AI and stuff like that. It's just cheap. But I'm determined to do it. I feel like if God gave me the gifts, if he brought me this far, like it's just a test for me to have trust and to do it because I know it's right. I also want my kids to see that like, this is important. The faith is important. This is something you stake your entire life on. So I can't imagine going back. I feel like I'm going to make this work. If I have to reorient myself because technology changes or whatever, like I'll do it. Like I just can't imagine going back to normal living at this point.
One of the things Tim and I always talk about in relation to Catholic businesses is that a lot of them, unfortunately, the quality isn't so great. Like you want to support the Catholic business, but the actual product is not so good. I can tell you firsthand, like your prints, your shirts, everything. It's not just the imaging, but it's the materials used and the quality of the paper. And we have framed art in our guest room, like Tim said. It's good. It's not just that it looks pretty, but it is made very well on top of that. So kudos to you, because we like to support Catholic businesses, but half the time, like we'll look at things and we're like, it's pretty, but it's just not made well, or there's just quality issues with it, but not with you guys. So
well, thank you. I mean, this is kind of where things were providential for me, because that time I spent in the athletic apparel industry, we were making products for professional athletes, so like it had to be good. I learned about the apparel industry. I knew what constituted a good blank t-shirt. I knew how screen printing was done. And, so I never wanted to just like cut corners. Like I knew when I started the business, like if I was going to do it, it was going to be right. I was blessed in the fact that like I did have a career, so I was able to front the money to start the business, because it is expensive. Going back to your question, is it easy to start a business? No, it's not at all. Like you need some capital. And whether that's you just saving your money and reinvesting it back into yourself and in your business, like that's one way to do it.
I think we had a bit of a freeze.
Oh yeah, you broke up for a second, Chris.
Okay, yeah. You just brought back a funny memory that when I actually started the company, it was just so that like when we go on little trips and stuff, like I could go to these places. Like you went to Disney World recently. It's like I can go to these places and buy my kids an ice cream, and I'm not going to go broke.
Exactly.
So like I started doing this stuff so I could literally just relax and go buy some ice cream and we have a good time, right? And then I started making a return on the stuff I was making, and I just had a simple tactic. Like I wasn't going to take from the money that was providing for my family. I was going to make the business self-sustainable. So if I made $1 off of a print, I was going to turn that into $3. And that's just always been my goal. And I've just continued to try and keep that focus. But it is very expensive just to like get off the ground, build a line of products. It took me a long time to build up to the products. I didn't jump right into t-shirts. It took me a while to do t-shirts and hoodies because they are very expensive, and I don't do the cheap ones. I do premium apparel, and then I go and find craftsmen who are actually good and skilled laborers in what they do, and I work with those people directly to do that. So
go south of the border, right?
I go south of Atlanta.
Gotcha. Wink, wink. Yeah, gotcha.
Quality. Let's have you guys respond to. So Baritus, you have very good, very, very good stuff and very beautiful things. But let's look at something that perhaps is not so classically beautiful. So obviously, all of us make fun of as Catholics. Modern art is terrible and hilarious. But there's this funny video on YouTube or on Twitter where people were compiling a bit of modern art, and it's just funny given the topic. I'll go ahead and play that for you guys now.
Was that butter? What was that?
I think it was butter. Lovely.
Oh, I saw this one. Yeah.
The crowd gasps.
Yeah, and then he's proud of himself at the end. That's the funny thing.
Yeah, well, I mean, that's what the rest of the world is dealing with, and this is what we're dealing with. So.
Yeah, do we need to say anything? Well, what do you think of that, Chris?
Was that good?
I was going to say, I mean, I have as few comments as there was thought in those installations. I mean, but I'm not surprised. I mean, an empty vessel has nothing to give from it. That's what you're going to get.
Right.
And what I actually feel the worst about, and is really the most pathetic thing in that, is all the people that go there to watch that. And I'm sure they probably paid something to watch it. They're more pathetic than the person actually doing it.
They are.
Yeah.
I think this every time, because one of our favorite TV shows we rewatch, sitcoms anyway, is Frasier. And it's the peak 90s, and it's a great show. There's a lot that's timeless in it, but what's not timeless are those double-breasted baggy suits, even the expensive ones that he and Niles wear. And also what's not timeless is the tacky, like, African art in modern art populating his apartment. And every once in a while there will be an episode about art, and he and Niles are supposed to be these borderline geniuses, and it just reminds me it is an empty vessel. That modern art has no subject, it has no teleology, so it has to be silly.
Well, and this is exactly what happened. This is where the church went wrong after Vatican II. It's interesting too, if you read like some of the stuff that came out of Vatican II, they were actually warning against. They said we need art, we need beauty, because it's kind of that link to the mystery and the transcendental of the faith. The Vatican II actually said that. Right. So what happened after it? Well, once we started, spirit of the age, whatever it was, the madness of the times that went through and gutted historic churches of craftsman-made work. And we all have to remember, when you read Exodus, it's God himself who says in Exodus, he's the one that calls the craftsmen and the artists and all the people that will come together to glorify him through their work. And he says, I bestowed you with these gifts, and he expects them back. And he expects the first fruits of that. He doesn't expect Cain's sacrifice. He doesn't expect Cain's sacrifice. He expects Abel's. It's going to be hard work. It needs to be the best work possible. And it needs to glorify God. So when we went into these churches and just started ripping the stuff out, and we just had whitewashed walls, we had abstract geometric tapestries and things hanging from felt banners and things. Well, what does that say about the faith? It says that you can make it what you want. It's abstract. You can look at a white wall and imagine whatever you want about the faith. The reason why the art used to exist there was to conjure into the minds of the faithful the realities that we can't see. That's the job of the artist. He's supposed to bring those realities that the average person can't see to life, so that we can actually take them for the reality that they are. They can be real to us. They become something that's real to us through the image. And this is what God himself became when he became incarnated through Jesus, right? He becomes the image himself, and we participate as artists in that creative process and then offer that back to God as a sacrifice, in a sense. And so what was the Catholic Church doing? I don't, what you were talking about with the LGBT person, this is the track we're on right now. I got so much heat for criticizing the Vatican for the whole Luce thing. And
yeah, that's right. Yeah, Luce.
Yeah, I mean, and what was that? We don't need 80-year-old men releasing enemy characters, female enemy characters at that, and then that's supposed to be some kind of, and people jumped on me, well, it was for one event or whatever. It doesn't, it came out of the Vatican. And
Good
that
God.
is
The Zoomers who jumped on that were like, this is so based. I was like, wow, I normally get along with the Zoomers, but we have a generational impasse. They have tacky taste.
But you guys, you Zoomers have some tacky taste.
Yeah.
Well, and yeah, they do. But the Vatican's been pulling these tricks for years now. You look at their nativity scenes in the last number of years. I mean, they have robots, they have naked people. It's just been a freak show. That's not the Catholic Church. That's not the Catholic Church. The average person, either they don't care or they're not. This is another problem with average Catholics, though, is that we don't discern these things. We just kind of like consume it like everything else that we take in, and we don't stop for a minute to ask, like, what kind of art should we be doing? I do sense there's a revival coming now. I'm kind of getting this hint from the newer Catholics coming up and all the converts and things. They're like, what you guys are telling me is the Catholic faith is not what I'm seeing in history. So what's going on here? And so, thank God for people at least kind of like catching on to the madness. But how did it take this long? There's a lot of damage control to do at this point.
This is a bigger question, but it is strange that it took two generations after the council were just like, well, I guess now we just have art with like hot fit guys in jeans, shirtless at the nativity, and we have clown masses, and I guess that's our new reality. I guess this is building back better, and it was boomers and Gen X were totally just down for that, and then millennials started pushing back, and Zoomers, got on board. So I don't understand quite why it lasted that long. I don't understand why it's still kind of lasting.
I don't know. It's bizarre. Well, and the other sad reality of this is because we did that for so long, of course it turned people off to the faith. So we've been shedding numbers like crazy. And so what's happening is the churches where we have, historic art and things like that, they're typically in urban areas. So a lot of those Catholic populations are just dead or they moved out or whatever. Those churches are sitting there empty. Those churches are all closing. And so sometimes they'll get the altars and the Stations of the Cross and the windows and things will be relegated to other churches or sold to, a lot of times they're just relegated to a warehouse or whatever. Who knows where they end up? And those are things you don't get back. And this is one of the things about, I don't know if you wanted to jump to AI, but it's one of the things about AI is it's made art a cheap consumer product. And the thing is, you get one Michelangelo. Okay, you don't get to. He lived for a certain period of time. He was there to do his work, and then he was gone. And we have the legacy that he left behind, and that's something that we should take seriously. Well, the same thing goes for all the anonymous craftsmen. I'm sorry.
I said we're talking about the turtle, right? The Ninja Turtle.
Yeah, the Ninja Turtle, right?
His time period,
the high art stuff.
Yeah, exactly.
But like even the anonymous craftsmen that built Stations of the Crosses in a lot of these historic churches that you'll never know their names. Like those are works of art you're not getting back again. We don't even know how to make that stuff again in a lot of cases, because who was going to go into the sacred arts after Vatican II when felt banners and whitewashed walls were the thing? No one's going to invest in that.
Shout out to Coleman's Handcrafted, who is a friend of ours who actually does really beautiful artwork or woodwork, and he's exactly what you're saying. Like he does the altars and the kneelers and those sorts of things. He's really trying to bring his art to the churches to revive the traditionalism. So Coleman Handcrafted, you guys check him out as well. I'll put him on the screen soon too.
I know Pope Leo is hotly anticipated to write an AI art, maybe AI and sacred art encyclical. We don't know exactly what it'll be on. I think you'll follow that closely though, because this touches your heart deep. Of course it has to, right?
Yeah.
Fine artist.
Yeah, and it's kind of maddening. Maybe I've become a broken record on my channel. I've somehow gotten to be known for being anti-AI. Of course I am. I'm an artist. Like I've spent my entire life honing a craft. I spent money to go to school. I barely went to school. I did it for a piece of paper, so I didn't really learn much there, and that was graphic design. But as far as illustration goes, I've spent my entire life dedicated to this pursuit. There are people in schools that are paying a serious dime to learn the craft. So of course we're going to be a little bit upset when, and this is the thing you have to remember, tech companies decided that AI art was going to be a thing. Not artists. Artists didn't decide that. Tech companies did it, and they did it all behind closed doors, fleecing actual artists of their actual intellectual property, stuffing stuffing the data sets with stolen artwork, And then once they saw a dollar sign on it, they're like, well, we'll just commoditize this, right? And so now what you have is you have actual artists being fleeced on the back end. You haven't being fleeced on the front end, because now if you're on a social media app, they pretty much tell you, well, your art's going to be put back into the system. So you're competing against yourself.
Wow.
And so then you have Catholics that are, and there's continuing to do this. So they're continually stealing from artists. And I've always said that, they need to have like a junk warning, like a junk food disclaimer on them. This was made using AI art. This is all computers, right? We know whose art was pulled to do this. There's sites you can go and see if your art was scraped. Those people have been stolen from. They haven't been compensated. And if you read Rerum Novarum, it's very interesting. You can almost read the admonitions against, certain things going on in the Industrial Revolution, and just take intellectual property and overlay it on top of the word property in that document. And we're facing almost the exact same situation. In fact, I wrote it down because I didn't want to forget it. That the Pope said in that encyclical that to try and make gain out of artists, it wasn't talking about artists, but you can superimpose the idea here. It was talking about laborers, but to make gain off of the laborer or the artist, simply for their talents, and I can't remember what. So there's some, to use them for gain as like they're the things themselves, or like the artist is the thing to be used. He calls it shameful and inhuman. Funny choice of words, the inhuman part, considering we're dealing with anti-human stuff now. And you can almost, do the Catholics know that? Do Catholics know that it's not moral to steal?
Right.
I hope so. What section? Do you know what section of Rerum that's in?
Gosh,
While you're looking for that, it's on the screen right now. This is Coleman's Handcrafted. So this is a woodworker that we're quite close with, Andrew Coleman and his wife. And this is actually our house. This is something
awesome.
he made for us. This is our Saint Mark reliquary, and he made this, and it's absolutely beautiful. So we have,
first order relic of
first order. We have a bone, but this is his work product, and this is Coleman's Handcrafted. This is their website. So we're very fortunate to know very good Catholic artists, woodworkers, that sort of thing. So you find something of quality, you really want to support these people.
Yeah, and I like, we can reduce it to AI or modern art. AI is kind of, I guess, postmodern art, but I don't know why the world. I get what happened at like the council, but I get sick of using the council as the boogeyman to answer all inquiries. Like, we used to have all great art commissioned. We used to have all the writers, the poets, the thinkers, the theologians, the artists in our stable. And now Steph said it once. I just want to repeat it. I'm honored to know you. I'm honored to know Andrew Coleman. It's so rare that a Catholic company makes a really good product. I'm surprised, because I talk about this with Patrick Coffin. A lot of times people are like, I'm Catholic, buy my stuff. You owe it to me. No, Catholic companies owe it to the consumer to do an extra good job. QC better be through the roof.
That's right. That's right. And I vet all my product. I spend money developing products before I ever run it public. Right. So there is an investment to make sure that you're putting the best stuff out there possible. My daughter, who basically runs the fulfillment for my shop, like, she meticulously checks every shirt to make sure we don't have issues with it. That's critical, because you have to gain the trust of people. People are going to support you. I am somebody, I'm a little bit of a workaholic. I really respect, I think when Adam fell and God gave Adam the task to work the garden, that was a redemptive thing for him. And I don't take that lightly. And that's one of the reasons why AI bugs me so much. There's no work, there's no struggle, there's no process, there's no work involved. It's simply the thought. And so, like, work is critical for the Catholic. I mean, we talk about working out our salvation with fear and trembling. I mean, it goes throughout Scripture, especially in a couple places in James. And so when people are working hard and are spending their hard-earned money to support Catholics, like, I better be giving them the best product possible. I better be making sure that dollar isn't squandered, because that means a lot to me. Like, people could spend that on anything else. Art is, in a sense, frivolous. we need art in a sense because our soul, JP2 wrote that letter to artists encyclical, and he talks about, without art, our soul is kind of darkened and becomes depressed and is weighed down. So art is something that kind of lifts us up and inspires us. So in that sense, we do need art. But, there's a million things that the average person has to buy in their life. It doesn't have to necessarily be art. So if somebody's spending money on it, it has to be a good product.
Yeah, there's a difference, as Mr. Keating says in Dead Poets Society, there's a difference between engineer, lawyer, doctor. These sustain us. Maybe not lawyer, but these sustain us, farmer. But what ennobles us is what you're doing. Well, what my friend Andrew's doing. What a truly good, a great novel does. So it's an important distinction, and it seems to be dear to the new Pope's heart as well, because he's very interested, I think, from the same angle you are, in decrying the cheapening of work product by AI. I'm very curious to see what he says. I'm sure you will be too. But if we're talking about the cheapening of art, I'm curious at this LifeSite article. Again, people, we haven't done a lot of Pope Leo shows, but the title reads this way: Pope Leo names pro-LGBT artist who hosted obscene exhibits to lead Vatican's Academy for Fine Arts. Pope Leo XIV appointed Cristiana Perella as president of the Pontifical Academy of Fine Arts, though Perella has organized sexually explicit pro-homosexual art displays in recent years. Interesting. The Vatican announced Saturday that the Pope appointed Roman Museum Director Christina Perella to the position. The Pontifical Academy for Fine Arts and Letters of the Virtuosi al Pantheon was founded in 1542 by Pope Paul III for the purpose of promoting, studying, and cultivating sacred art and Christian-inspired literature. Perella is known as an expert in contemporary art, which seems like it's at cross purposes. She's been director of the Macro Museum in Rome since March of this year. Oh, a whole 6 months. And previously taught cultural management at San Raffaele University in Milan. But she's hosted multiple obscene pro-LGBT and sadomasochistic displays in the past. That's not good.
That's not good.
That doesn't seem like our stuff. In 2020, she curated an exhibition called Nudes. So she's not even saying, oh, well, this is, the nudes are in the background somewhere. They're not the subject. The nudes are the subject. The exhibition is called Nudes, featuring 90 photographs by Chinese artist Ren Hang. I'm not going to do anything with that one. At the Centro per l'Arte Contemporanea Luigi Pecci in Prato, Italy. Most of the photographs showed naked persons, as you might have guessed, with some of them featuring homoerotic poses. The official exhibition description stated that some of the photos at times refer to sadomasochism and fetishism. In 2019, the Italian artist directed the exhibition Night Fever, Designing Club Culture 1960 to Today. The display promoted nightclub culture and featured sexualized pro-LGBT exposés. In an interview with Sleek magazine, she lamented that nightclubs are increasingly under threat due to closures. That's sad. The exhibition also highlighted queer club culture, and Perella stressed the role of nightclubs for the LGBT movement, since clubs were places where people could be themselves and affirm their identity publicly. So I don't know. What do you make of all this? It's bad.
Why are we on a Catholic program? Why does this have to be the reality we have to talk about? I mean, it's just, but you know what? This is the same thing that happened with the Luce thing. The Vatican could have pulled from a pool of a million different artists that'd be chomping at the bit for that commission. Of course. Who do they go to? They go to the guy that's known for doing pornographic toys and installations. It's just their thing. It's not even. I mean, at this point, I'm assuming that we can't even assume that it's not intentional anymore. You can't say that it was an accident.
I don't know why anyone ever assumed it was unintentional. If I'm like, hey man, if you're looking for a babysitter because you want to start going on a weekly date with your wife, and I'm like, I got a great guy. Okay, just trust me. I got a babysitting guy. First off, you'd be like, "What? Why is it a guy?"
Yeah.
but I got a gal, right? And then I sent this Christiana Perella over to your house. I'm like, she has experience. You probably thought I meant experience babysitting kids or something. And I'm like, no, she's done an exhibit called Nudes. It was widely viewed by groomers and weirdos everywhere. Her experience is so good. You'd be like, dude, WTF, what's your problem? I'm gonna punch you in the face. Yeah. So I don't know why anyone would ever, I don't know how you get away with this once when you vouchsafe someone and you stick up for him and you say, this is my guy.
Yeah.
This is my art guy. He loves nudes.
That's a good point. Yeah.
Well, so it's just odd. Yeah. I hear people saying, well, I don't follow the Pope. I don't just want to pick on him. This is news.
Yeah.
I didn't say nudes. I said nudes.
Yeah. It's both.
Nudes. Why are we supposed to hang our heads in shame that this is real news? It's not my fault. I'm not getting the gay art weirdo.
That's the thing. That's the thing. Why are we getting blamed for noticing? Why are we getting blamed?
Yeah.
I get you, man. You're right. Why did even one time get through the doors? I honestly, I commend you for even reading that article. I get halfway through that stuff and I'm too frustrated.
It's frustrating, but it's funny. It is funny. If you don't laugh, you cry. We were talking about before we rolled tape, and it's kind of, there's some parts that were kind of. But let me read a little bit more before I do that.
I'm gonna start crying.
In 2021, Perella curated an exhibition titled Cult Fiction, featuring photographs from Marialba Russo documenting the explicit advertisement posters for pornographic movies that were seen on the streets of Aversa and Naples during the late 70s and early 80s. The theme of the exhibition was sexual liberation. Perella has been a member of the Pontifical Academy for Fine Arts since June 2022, when she was appointed by Pope Francis. Perella is responsible for the program of the Conciliazione 5, exhibition space of the Dicastery for Culture and Education of the Holy See, which was inaugurated for the Holy Year 2025. In the wake of the Jubilee, she also curated a site-specific art installation in Rome's Rebibbia prison, where Pope Francis opened his own holy door on December 26, 2024. And, the article just reminds us that Pope Leo has recently met with several prominent heretics, that's funny, they just say heretics, including the infamous Jesuit Father James Martin, the pro-abortion nun Sister Lucia Karam, and the head of the German Bishops' Conference, George Batzing. While the Vatican did not signal support for their views, the Holy See also offered no condemnation of the promotion of errors in matters of faith or morals. So why, I don't know, it's like the Clarion enigma. Why do we have to deal with this?
Yeah, right.
What should the proper response be?
I mean, I don't know, but people need to remember that there was a time in our church history where we literally killed each other over art. And now we let this stuff just go. And it's almost like, I don't know. I just don't have even words. Like, I don't even know what to do at this point. And it's kind of like, it's gotten to the point that, the only thing I can think is that they know how powerful the image is. Like if you're depicting the Catholic Church the way that it should be, and you're representing the truth, the goodness, and the beauty the way that it should be, it's a dangerous thing. This is one of the things that I think, empowered really the Christian West to become what it was, because we were emboldened by the realities that the art portrayed for us. Now, if you're normalizing that toxic stuff, and degraded and depraved material, I mean, you're clearly speaking to a certain audience, and you're trying to take the ship off course. I mean, it's inevitable. Like you're hijacking things. Now, what you do about that, I have no idea. I can control what's within my realm of influence. I control my family. I control my business. I control the artwork that I make. And so, Baritus means war cry. So in a sense, the whole reason I started my company was because I wanted to go to war against that type of disgusting nonsense. And it's gross is what it is.
Yeah.
Yeah. What was that?
That's the thing, man. I wrestled with this for nearly 12 full years under Francis. How do you go to war with it when the Holy Father is like, this is our guy, this is our gal, she's a weirdo, Get hip to it. I don't, and then just drops that note and then on to the next thing. And then he'll say something like Latin Mass is good.
Right.
So gay art weirdo in charge of all our art now, Latin Mass is good.
Yeah.
There's something deeply perturbing about this. And I don't
it's
know.
It's sowing confusion intentionally.
Right. I think that's all it is.
And it's letting the children fight. Because he knows, like, he doesn't have to do the work. All he has to do is drop this ambiguous, that one's right on the face, but like drop these little notes and the children pick up the fight.
Right.
And so if we're in chaos, we don't see that the home's being overrun.
Right.
That's my only take.
I mean, where are you on Pope Leo? I know, all the chirping sectaries say you're not supposed to have even a preliminary guess as to where he is, but is this not evidentiary of where he is, along with the James Martin stuff and the Kingmaker? I mean, how do you work this? How do you have this worked out? I don't even mean as an artist, just as a Catholic.
Just as a Catholic, yeah. I mean, for my own sanity years ago, for what I just said, like I can only control the realm of influence within my reach here, and I got so fatigued by the back and forth, and like I said, the chaos that the Pope Francis particularly had been sowing, that I'm like, this is not good for my peace. It's not good for me focusing on the mission that I got to focus on. So I have to admit, I really checked out. I don't follow this stuff. I catch hints of it just on social media, but all I can say is that when I heard he was from Chicago, I'm like, well, that's not good.
That's not good. That's not good.
I mean, look, I'm a realist. And so do I want a holy Pope? Absolutely. Of course I do. I became Catholic not to be the ridicule and scorn of the world, but to have somebody strong, who's as strong as the saints that went before us, that stands up with conviction and actually converts the world, like helps convert the world. So no, this is an embarrassment when they do this kind of stuff. And I take this, I think our Lord gives, he has his hand of I'm forgetting the balance, but I mean, this is a hand of justice in a sense. I think I look at the Old Testament as a template for what's happening right now. We should not be surprised when we get the leaders that we deserve. How have we been living? How's the world going? Like all the problems you see in the Old Testament with the kings, we've essentially got that now. I'm not surprised. Like this is just the human condition. It's
fair, but I mean, isn't that, in some sense, isn't that kind of the opposite critique that Francis was making of the trads? Like, and I will include myself with trads. I don't always metonymize myself as a trad, but here I'm part of the whole. Aren't we kind of trying to do too much? I mean, aren't we trying to kind of live out the signal gospel life with our families and do our best to be our own bishops and to really, really, even if the bishops are saying, oh no, you can sort of contracept and you can, skip mass on Sunday. You can take this or that jab. Aren't we trying to hold ourselves accountable? It seems like that narrative is just the way it strikes me, of getting the leaders that we deserve, that Jefferson always talked about, doesn't really apply to, I'm not saying I'm perfect. I'm not, but I do try hard, and so do people that watch this program, the parish orphans out there. So do you, to lead our families right. Like, why do we deserve this?
I get what you're saying. That's fair. So, like, in that sense, it's not the Catholics that are truly trying to put the faith at the center of their lives, and that's the foundation of every decision they make and the way that they rule their households. But we suffer along with the dead weight. And I think that's just what you see out of Israel. And I think this is one of the reasons that our Lord lamented so much, because he knew that the good were being
punished with the bad.
Exactly. And it's not until the end of time does he separate the sheep from the goats. And so what does that mean? Well, we are with the stinking goats. I don't know what to do about that. And it's and that's why I say, like, I'm kind of a small scale. I'm totally like a guy who's come around to the idea that, like, I influence the things that I can affect. Subsidiarity is kind of like a principle that I think is the only way forward. Like, I don't know. I mean, we start within our households and we hopefully form the small civilization around us, and maybe that spreads outwards. Either that or this thing just runs itself out from fatigue. And how evil can evil get? I'm scared to find out, but I mean, I've read the scripture and I think it's going to get pretty evil.
Yep. No, I think that's right, man. Well, thank God for guys like you, guys like my friend Andrew, who are keeping it real. Would you close by telling us that you said the narrative insinuated a little bit like a Norman Rockwell by every great image? Would you explain?
I was going to ask him the same thing.
Yeah,
I want this screen. One. You start with your shirt because I have that exact same shirt. I love that shirt. But start with that one because that's our favorite. That's my favorite one that Tim's wearing right now. And then also what's on the screen right now. I'd love to hear more about it, but let me get the other one up.
Yeah. So that the Saint Therese is interesting because I've really seen how like you don't really pick the saints that kind of follow you through life. I mean, I really do think there's like this mystical way in which the saints somehow find you and they kind of follow you through life. She's been one of those saints. So like I met my wife at the parish of the Little Flower, which I met her and then she essentially introduced me to Catholicism. And that was the parish. So she was like the first saint I was introduced to. And I was going to mass there for years. And I always thought that the big image of her at the altar was Mary. And then I found out years later, like, oh no, that's actually Saint Therese. So I was like, well, she was like my first introduction to the saints and like what their story is. And so we got married at that parish. They eventually erected a statue of her there, and they commissioned it on the day we got married. So I'm like, that's interesting. And then, our daughter's named after her. And so she's just been one of those saints that she also had a devotion to Joan of Arc, which I thought was interesting because I've always loved the more militaristic stories from Catholic history. Mm-hmm. Lepanto, Joan of Arc, those sorts of things. And so anyway, with her, it led me to learn a little bit more about her. And I just like the fact that like this was part of a larger piece which depicted all the virtues in opposition to the vices. And it was titled "The Life of Man Upon Earth as a Warfare," which is a quote from Job. I mean, that whole series is about depicting some kind of virtue with a saint that could kind of exemplify that in her life. And so this one was charity versus envy. And so those little acts of charity or kindness that she was doing were just enough to just torment the devil. And I just think that's Catholicism an interesting thing because it's in its weakness that we have power. And we just read this. My wife and I were just reading this in scripture this morning that it's in the weakness that God allows us to kind of like have to endure in life. It's through that he shows his glory. And so I love those almost like contradictory images, Christ on the cross, behold, I'm making all things new. You're making all things new. You're dying on the cross. Like it's a contradiction. And at the same time, like it's a powerful image that like those small acts like have an infinite power through grace. So that's kind of what that image represents there. That's one piece of the larger.
Beautiful.
I really loved it. I mean, when I first saw this, I loved it just from like the anti-feminism angle, like just like the beauty and the femininity of even just her holding the rose petals and just the beauty of true biblical femininity and what that actually does to the demonic. Like Our Lady's obedience and willingness to follow our Lord and to do everything he said is such an enormous threat to the demonic. And when I saw this image too, because a lot of people, when I meet them in public and they're not Catholic because we're in the South, they think it's Our Lady as well. But it's like, it still applies, the principle that just this beautiful saintly feminine against what is the disgusting demonic, and what it does to the demonic is, to me, I saw this and I was like, I must have this.
I'm glad you said that. You actually said something really important there, because I love what you all have been saying about the feminism stuff. And you see, I didn't, even with Joan of Arc, like I don't depict Joan of Arc as a man. She's not wielding a cross like some kind of epic hero. A sword. She's holding her sword against her breast like a cross in the image I did of her. It's a more feminized version of the Joan of Arc. She still has the power and the strength in her convictions, but she was still totally a woman, right? And then same with this image here, like she's barely dropping the rose petals. It's not some like girl boss power move. It's just the simplicity of being who she is in her femininity.
Absolutely. I actually need to buy another one because I've kind of worn that shirt to oblivion. So I need to get myself another one. But okay, so this one here, beautiful. Let me put it on the screen. I noticed a lot of people have this one particularly. Could you just tell us a little bit more about, obviously as Catholics who love art, we identify some of the usages here. But one of the things I love about what you do is you just blend in the macabre with the beauty. And to me, like, that's one of the things that I've always resonated with Catholic art. It's like, it's the truth of like death and suffering and, suffering for Christ with also the redemptive beauty of it. And it's like, you blend both of those things really beautifully in a lot of your images. And, Tim and I are rocker. We love rock music. And my favorite band is the Deftones. We're rockers, so we love that. We love that kind of metal Catholic aesthetic. So this is one of those images that I always get drawn to. Let me put it better on the screen.
Yeah, it's interesting. That's one of the first pieces I did with Baritus, and it was actually done by a convert from Islam to Catholicism. It was commissioned by her. She wrote a book about her conversion, Daria Little. I don't know if you've ever come across her. So she commissioned this piece, and it was something I wanted to do already, but she kind of put the fire under me to like put all this work into it, because it kind of was a lot. And I have to say, just to be upfront, like, this is not my most original piece. 99% of my work is original. A lot of this is drawn from previous traditional Catholic art scenes that you typically find, but I just depicted it in my own way. So like, I wanted to essentially show all the various aspects of the Mass. So you have the people that are there in adoration at the moment of the consecration, and you see that that's redemptive for the souls in purgatory that are praying and being freed from purgatory by the graces of the Mass. And then you also see that there's a spiritual transcendent reality where the Mass is perpetuated for all time in heaven. And that's the scene that's at the top, where the saints, Our Lady, Saint Joseph, they're all there. The angels are there, and it's the moment where they go to war against the evil. So you see that the angels are in battle against the evil at the same time of this. And so really, I mean, it's just an all-encompassing piece to give people an idea of the various levels that the Mass operates on. It's very easy for us, especially if you're going to a very mundane kind of saccharine, what's the word? Cotton candy kind of Mass, where the homilies, it starts with a joke about football or something like that, and then it's just kind of like checking a box for Sunday. Like, you can miss the reality of what's happening there. And I think that that's one of the things that the traditional kind of I don't know what you would call it, but this kind of like craving to go back to something more traditional, something more mysterious, something timeless and eternal, that is drawing people. That's why this has been one of my most popular pieces, because people are looking for that. They're not going to Mass just to experience what they would experience any other place. They're going to see something transcendent. I do intend to redraw this, actually, because I did this really small for a book cover. And so I am going to do like epic size poster version of this at some point in time.
That would be great.
Yeah.
I think we have this one up in our house because we have a lot of people who aren't necessarily Catholic, but I like them to see this because I like them to know this is what Catholics are working with. This is what we have going on.
Yeah. Well, if I ever get to the point where I update this, I'll send you all one.
Oh, that would be incredible.
You can get a refreshed version.
That would be insanely good. Thank you. What is your favorite one?
I was going to ask that too.
Yeah.
Mine. Mine. Oh, well, so going back to how the saints kind of pick you, when I converted into the church, I really did it to get married. I didn't know any of the saints. And so I didn't learn the faith until after I became Catholic. It's a weirdo sort of thing. I don't know how that managed to happen, but so I learned the faith after I became Catholic. And I was really drawn to St. Peter because it was on him that I saw that it was one of the reasons I fell away from my faith as a nominally raised Protestant, was that there was no tradition there. There was no connection back to the ancient. There's no connection to Christ himself. So when I discovered that the Catholics were saying Peter was the first pope, that blew my mind. I think we take that for granted, but like I remember asking my mother-in-law that, and I said, "Who's the first pope? Like, what's the deal with the pope anyway?" And she's like, "St. Peter," and my mind was just blown. And that actually kind of like set me off on a course to like, oh wait, you're telling me that like there's this connection to Jesus and the apostles that is actually tied to Catholicism today? Like, I have to discover that for myself. Yeah. So, and then when I read his story, and especially his sacrifice and just the way he didn't want to be crucified in the same manner as our Lord, I'm like, and I kind of take I sympathize with him because he's always saying the wrong things. He's kind of hot-headed. I have the same temperament as him when I read about him in scripture. And you wonder, is he going to be saved in the end? Like, is this going to work out for him? Yeah. But I always love that he returns. And I pray that hopefully he helps me return too in those moments of weakness where I kind of lose it. And so for me, the church, so the Bark of St. Peter is another one, which, Tim, I always appreciated back when the madness was going on about the Latin Mass and stuff, that you were always like, you don't leave the church. And so
don't fall off the left side, but don't fall off the right side either.
That's right. And so I have to admit, like, you were kind of echoing in my head a little bit, even as I drew this one, because so those two images kind of go hand in hand for me, just because of the nature of how I saw that the typology come alive in scripture is just unbelievable. It's something I never knew as, in my upbringing.
That's beautiful. I like that one a lot.
I love your colors too, by the way.
Yeah.
Like, keep doing the colors that you're doing. There's something very eye-catching about like the blues and like the golds and the browns and blacks that you're using. Like, I don't remember how we got introduced to your stuff. I think I was actually looking for a birthday present or just Catholic stuff to wear. And it immediately caught my eye. There is just something about not just the artwork, but the colors themselves that were just so strikingly beautiful in combination with one another that I was just like, yep, buying some of this.
Well, thank you. Thanks be to God. That goes back kind of to like my moodiness. Like I'm definitely a melancholic, and I kind of get in these, I like the gloomy kind of dark stuff. But I always put, that's the thing. I kind of render everything out dark, but I always put hints of light. It's a good way to contrast the little hints of light, and the light's not super overpowerful. Usually it's just like little glimpses of hope that kind of shine through in the symbolism. So yeah, I mean, that's kind of, I love vintage stuff too. Like, I don't know. I joke that I kind of wasn't made for this era. The modern world's just nuts. And I look back at some of the old stuff and I'm like, man, I was born in the wrong time, but
who wasn't of that I would have on this show? If I had a guest on and I was like, yeah, you're made for this era, I would be flipping the bird, linguistically. Well, that's amazing, man. I mean, yeah, this is just, it's really important to do what you're doing. Keep going, protect this man at all costs. Did you want to shout anything out, or make any sort of parting shot?
Look, I'm just grateful for the chance to get to talk about art and talk about it the way that I think that it should be focused, and that is on like truth, goodness, and beauty. I don't think it, we can't be trying to make like a statement about ourselves with the art. Like, if this comes across as meaningful or catchy to people, thanks be to God. Like, it's not, I'm just trying to represent the Catholic faith authentically and for the truth and the grit of it. So if people appreciate that, then all the more glory to God. I'm glad that I came around in my life and was able to get all the toxic MTV culture that just formed me for like more than half of my life. I'm glad I finally was able to divorce myself from that, and find a way to use these talents in a way that hopefully, is having some good effect to counter all of the maneuverings of the Vatican to just cram LGBT art and stuff down our throats.
Yeah. I really don't know what the meaning of that news story is that we read today. I hope it, like I said, for 12 years during Francis, I stopped saying it during Francis because the writing was on the wall, but I hope it means nothing. But few things mean nothing.
Right.
So right. I don't know. We'll just, God bless you. Keep going. Keep doing your thing, Chris.
Thank you. Well, you guys too. God bless you both as well. I've really appreciated a lot of the stuff you guys are doing. I mean, I think we all need to work on different fronts in the culture right now because it's just so lost. Like, it's lost.
It's lost. And there's not everyone can do everything. Not one man can do everything.
That's right.
We need the art. We need news. We need science. Some Catholics need to retake science. We need obviously philosophy and theology from within the church to come back. Yeah. We need the fine arts. We need entertainment. That I think will be the last one, because when Catholics or Christians writ large try to do entertainment, it's always so dorky and bad and unentertaining. That's going to be
said the same. Yeah, I've said the same. That's really needed. And we think that things aren't lost right now because there's still this thin veneer that like everything's just functioning and everything's good. but it's such a thin veneer, and
It is.
and we need to get things back on the right track before the veneer just chips away. That's my take.
No, I'm with you, brother. All right. Well, hey, if you would stick around, could you just do a little 10-minute maybe Q&A with the locals people?
Absolutely. Yeah.
And I think you kindly offered like a 1 or 2 like just free pieces, and I think we'll maybe reserve those to the locals people. So I'm going to give the locals, you guys, I'm going to do a live stream, another live stream. So you guys check the locals page in like 5-6 minutes. So thanks again.
All right. Thank you.
Yeah, we'll see you, Chris, and you local supporters for behind the scenes with Chris right now. Other than that, God bless you all, and Deus Vult.